The sound of wind sliding through the canyon walls carried a strange hush that evening, the kind that made a person stop in their tracks and listen to the land itself. It was late summer across the old frontier plains, and the sky glowed in a burnt gold shade as the sun eased behind the far mesas. Folks always said that when the wind moved that way, something unusual was about to unfold, something the land wanted you to notice. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking straight into a moment that would change her life forever, the first time she saw the Apache warrior. He stood on a ridge above her wagon path, motionless, as if carved from the very red stone beneath his boots. His presence alone made the horses tense. She had been traveling alone for 2 days, hoping to reach Pine Cliff before nightfall. Her father had sold the old ranch out from under her, then vanished into trouble she could no longer fix. Now she was caught between past grief and a land full of dangers she had only heard whispers about. The dusty trail ahead looked endless, and the world behind her was nothing she could return to. She tightened her grip on the reins, trying to steady her breath. She didn't know the warrior was watching not out of threat, but because he had already sensed what she couldn't see coming. Her name was Reyna, and she was no stranger to hard journeys, but the frontier had a way of testing a person beyond endurance. The trail narrowed as she rode into a tight rock bend where ancient stone walls rose on both sides like a giant gate. The shadows hid more than she liked, and her horse knew it too. It kept tossing its head and blowing sharp breaths into the warm air. She tried to calm it, but then she heard a sudden crack above her. A rain of shale tumbled down the cliffside. She pulled the reins hard, eyes searching the ridge. Before she could react, a voice cut through the canyon. "Lift your legs higher," the Apache whispered from behind her. The whisper came so close, so sudden, that instinct alone made her obey. She pulled her legs up just as his hand reached around the saddle horn and swept her off the horse with one powerful motion. Her heart slammed against her ribs, thinking she had been captured. But the truth revealed itself in the next breath. A massive rattler, thick as a coiled rope, struck at the spot where her boot had been a heartbeat earlier. Its fangs scraped leather, not skin. He set her on the ground behind him, stepping in front as the rattler hissed. He didn't draw a weapon, didn't move in panic. Instead, he stood still, watching the coil unwind and slide back into a dark crevice. Only when the danger had passed did he turn to her. There was no boast in his eyes, no hard pride, only steady calm, as if saving her was something he had planned the moment he saw her enter the canyon. "You walk a dangerous trail alone," he said quietly. Reyna tried to find her voice, but the jolt of fear left her breath thin. She steadied herself and met his gaze. The man before her looked like the wind carved his strength, with a presence that felt rooted deeper than the desert floor. She didn't know his name yet, only that he had been watching her long before she spotted him on the ridge. "I didn't hear you ride up," she said, forcing her breath to slow. "I was already here." His answer unsettled and comforted her at the same time. She had grown up around loud men who believed noise meant power. This one carried strength in silence. She found herself trying to guess his intentions, but his eyes gave nothing away. Still, something told her he wasn't there to harm her. He motioned toward her wagon, now sitting crooked in the narrow trail. "There are places along this pass where riders vanish. You should not cross alone." Reyna tried not to show her worry. "I don't have much choice." He studied her a moment longer, as though weighing the truth in her words. She noticed his attention drift to her torn sleeve, then to the fresh scrape along her arm she hadn't felt yet. She followed his gaze and sighed. She had been so focused on reaching Pine Cliff she didn't realize how worn she looked. Dust streaked her skirt, her hat hung crooked, and her entire spirit felt stretched thin. The Apache stepped closer and examined the cliff edge above them. "You were followed earlier," he said. "Not by me." Her pulse jumped. "Who?" "2 riders. They kept to the shadows. They turned back when the canyon narrowed." Reyna swallowed hard. Trouble had followed her since the ranch was lost. She knew some men wanted the map her father once carried, a map she didn't even have. But word traveled fast across lonely trails, and greed traveled faster. She suddenly realized how exposed she was and how easy it would have been for those riders to trap her along the bend if the Apache hadn't been watching. "I mean no harm to you," he added, reading her worry before she spoke it. "But the men riding after you do." Reyna didn't know why, but she believed him. A hush settled around them again, deeper this time. He walked toward her wagon and pressed a hand against one of the wheels. The wood creaked like it might split. If it broke in the canyon, she'd be trapped until someone found her, and no one was coming. She watched him crouch, steady, deliberate, studying the damage. He didn't touch her things, didn't look through her supplies. Only checked the structure like a man who understood the land, and its dangers far better than she ever could. "You should make camp before crossing the far ridge," he said. "If you push forward now, the men behind you will catch up after dark?" Reyna's breath tightened. She didn't know how long he planned to stay near her. She didn't know if she could trust someone she had met only minutes ago. But she also knew something else. If she sent him away, she might not live to see morning. He rose to his full height, the fire-colored sky outlining his figure. "My camp is not far. Safer than this place." Reyna hesitated. "Why help me?" The warrior held her gaze for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth she deserved at that hour of the day. Then he answered with a calm weight that made her chest tighten. "Because the land warned me," he said. "And because danger follows you like a shadow you cannot see." The wind shifted again, carrying with it the faint echo of distant hoofbeats. Reyna heard it this time. The riders had turned back toward her trail. The Apache stepped closer, his voice low but steady, the same calm whisper that saved her life moments earlier. "If you stay here, the men chasing you will reach this pass before the moon rises," he said. "And you will not escape them alone." Her heartbeat trembled. She glanced toward her wagon, then toward the narrow canyon behind her. The land no longer felt like open country. It felt like a trap waiting to spring. The Apache extended his hand toward the trail leading away from the danger, toward the higher ground where the wind shifted differently. "Come now," he said. "There is no time." Reyna looked at his hand, then at the rising shadows around them. She didn't know the full truth behind the danger he spoke of. She didn't know what awaited her in his camp. She didn't know who he really was or why her path had crossed his. But she knew one thing with certainty. If she refused him, she might not survive the night. She took a breath, bracing herself, heart pounding as the distant hoofbeats grew louder. Then she stepped forward, drawn into a choice that would lead her toward a fate she could never have imagined. And just as she reached him, just as the wind shifted once more, he murmured something she didn't yet understand. "Stay close to me," he said. "The real danger hasn't shown its face." Reyna followed the Apache up the narrow ridge path, the sound of her boots brushing the dust mixing with her own uneven breathing. She tried to keep her steps quiet, but every scrape echoed like a warning in her ears. The sky had shifted from gold to deep amber, and shadows stretched long across the broken land. Behind them, the faint hoofbeats had fallen silent, but she could feel the tension in the wind as if the danger was still close. The Apache walked a few steps ahead of her, steady and sure, moving like a man who knew the way even in pitch dark. His presence alone brought a strange sense of protection, though she barely understood why. She didn't know him, yet she felt drawn into the strength he carried. He stopped now and then to scan the trail, listening more than looking, his head turning slightly to catch sounds she couldn't hear. She noticed how relaxed he seemed, even with danger closing in behind them. A man who lived in this land knew its rules far better than any map could tell. Reyna pushed a stray piece of hair behind her ear and tried to steady her thoughts. 2 weeks ago, she believed her biggest worry was figuring out where to go after the ranch was seized. Now, she was walking through a lonely canyon with a warrior who had appeared out of nowhere, saved her from a rattler, warned her about hidden riders, and now guided her toward higher ground. Every choice she had made since dawn felt like stepping into water deeper than she expected. The path opened into a wide slope, where the evening breeze cooled the air. Here the Apache paused and finally spoke. "Your wagon will be safe until morning. The men following you will lose your tracks for a while." Reyna looked back toward the canyon edge, her heart still uneasy. How do you know they're even after me? He turned his head slightly. They followed every turn of your trail. No one does that without reason. Reyna swallowed hard. She didn't want to tell him what she carried, or rather, what people believed she carried. The story had spread far beyond her ranch. Her father spent years chasing whispers, claiming there was a hidden path through the northern cliffs, a route the old surveyors never finished marking. Some said the path led to a forgotten mining trail, others said it led nowhere at all. But men had been watching her father for months before he disappeared, believing he held a map worth fighting for. What they didn't know was that she had never seen that map. Her father vanished before she could ask him where he hid it. Now she was paying the price for secrets she didn't even understand. The Apache kept walking, and she hurried to match his pace. "Do you know who they are?" she asked. "Not yet." But their tracks showed no hunting gear, no supplies for long travel. Men who ride light are chasing something, not exploring. She felt a tremor move through her chest. "If they catch me, they'll search everything I have." "They won't catch you," he said. The words firm, like a promise he didn't second-guess. Reyna wasn't sure why. But she believed him more than she trusted her own strength. She kept walking until they reached a rise that overlooked a cluster of mesquite trees. Beyond them, tucked between two slanted boulders, she saw a small fire pit and the outline of a shelter built from branches and hides. It wasn't large, but it looked steady, like it had been standing through many seasons of wind and dust. "This is your camp?" she asked. "For tonight," he replied. Reyna stepped forward, studying the ground. She saw hoof marks, but only one set, his. She saw tracks near the fire pit, light ones, not enough to show that more than one person had been here recently. Whoever he was, he moved alone. She wasn't sure whether that made her safer or more uneasy. He motioned for her to stand near the shelter while he checked the perimeter. She watched him move between the trees with a silent confidence, his steps barely shifting the dry leaves. The way he studied the land made her wonder how long he had been living this way, how many dangers he had learned to read long before they arrived. When he returned, he offered her a canteen. "Drink, you've been riding since morning." Reyna accepted it, the cool water washing away the dryness in her throat. She felt her heartbeat settling slightly. He gathered a few dry branches and placed them near the pit, but didn't light them yet. Instead, he sat on the ground, arms resting loosely on his knees, watching the horizon as if expecting something to rise from the darkening land. "There is something following you that is more than men," he said suddenly. Reyna froze. "What do you mean?" He glanced at her, studying her face, as if testing whether she could handle the truth he was about to share. "When I first saw you on the ridge, the wind shifted in a strange way. It carried a warning." Reyna tried to steady her breath. She'd grown up hearing the ranch hands talk about how the land sometimes whispered before trouble came, but she always thought of it as superstition, something people said when storms arrived early or coyotes cried too close at night. "What kind of warning?" she asked. He looked back toward the canyon. A silence that shouldn't be there. Birds stopped calling. Even the insects hid. The land only grows quiet like that when it senses danger riding fast. Reyna felt a cold prickle along her arms. "Are you saying the land knows something about me?" "The land knows when fear travels," he said simply. "And fear was moving with you." Those words sank into her deeper than she expected. She didn't want to admit that she had been scared long before entering the canyon. She had been scared since the night she found the ranch door open, her father gone, and the books he always kept locked spread across the table as if someone searched them in a hurry. She folded her hands together. "I don't know what they want. I don't have anything worth this kind of trouble." "You have knowledge," he answered. "And men fear what they do not control." Reyna hesitated. She thought back to the strange man who asked questions near her ranch 2 months ago. He claimed he wanted to buy cattle, but his questions shifted too quickly toward her father's search for the forgotten trail. Then there was the letter she found hidden under the floorboard, written in her father's rough handwriting. He warned her not to trust anyone who came asking about the northern cliffs. He told her the old land kept its secrets for a reason. He told her someone had been following him for weeks. She had not shown that letter to anyone. Not even the sheriff. The Apache watched her expression change. You are thinking of something. I'm thinking of too much, she said, her voice tight. I never asked for any of this. No one asks for danger, he replied. But they can choose how they face it. Reyna sat down near the fire pit, the air cooling around her shoulders. She hugged her arms and looked at him more closely. You haven't told me your name. He didn't speak right away. Then he answered with quiet weight. I am Kiowan. The name settled into her mind like a stone dropped into still water. Strong, rooted, unshaken. She nodded. Thank you for helping me, Kiowan. He gave a slight nod in return. You helped yourself when you listened to my voice. Reyna felt heat rise in her face, remembering the moment he whispered for her to lift her legs before the rattler struck. She didn't know why she trusted a stranger without hesitation. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fate. Maybe the land truly had warned him, and she had been pulled into something far larger than the danger chasing her. Kiowan reached for a piece of dry mesquite wood. He held it between his hands, listening to the crackle of its fibers. He still hadn't lit the fire. We will stay in the dark until the night settles. Fire draws eyes. Reyna nodded. Are you expecting those riders to come this way? They will search the canyon first, then the ridge, then the pass. If they are determined, they will not stop. Reyna felt her pulse quicken. Why are they so determined? Kiowan looked directly at her now, his voice steadier than the ground beneath them. That is what we must learn. A gust of wind rustled the branches overhead. Reyna turned toward the horizon, where deep shadows swallowed the land one ridge at a time. The silence around them grew thicker, heavier, as if the world was holding its breath. Then she heard something, a faint clatter. A loose stone. A shifting weight in the distance. Kiowan stood in a single motion. Stay behind me. Reyna rose quickly, her breath catching, unsure whether the danger was near or watching from afar. She searched the dark for any sign of movement. Her heart thundering, but the land offered no answers, only suspense. Only rising tension. Only the knowledge that whatever chased her had not given up, and the night was far from over. Kiowan moved toward the sound like a man used to danger, shoulders loose but ready. Reyna felt her lungs tighten as she watched him disappear between the trees. She wanted to follow but forced herself to stay put, fingers digging into her skirt. The land around her seemed to lean in, listening with them. The tension was not just in the night. It was in every choice that brought her there, in every secret her father kept, in every shadow that moved just beyond her sight. The faint clatter came again, this time from farther down the slope. Kiowan raised his hand for silence, then crouched low. Reyna held her breath, eyes straining. For a long moment there was only wind. Then, from behind a scrub bush, a figure stumbled into view. It was not one of the riders she expected. It was a boy, thin as a willow branch, his clothes torn, hair wild from the wind. He froze when he saw Kiowan, eyes wide with fear. Kiowan straightened slowly. Come closer, he said in a calm tone. You will fall if you keep backing up. The boy's chest rose fast. He glanced past Kiowan and saw Reyna near the shelter. That seemed to scare him even more. I did not follow you, he blurted. I swear it. I was trying to get away. Reyna stepped forward a little. Get away from who? The boy swallowed hard. From the men at the creek. They were talking about a woman with a wagon and an Apache who got in their way. His gaze settled on Kiowan. I think they meant you. Kiowan's expression did not change. But Reyna could feel the air around him grow sharper. Who are you? He asked. The boy shifted his weight, nervous. Name's Colt, he said. I used to sweep floors at the saloon in Pine Cliff, ran errands, carried bottles, heard things I wasn't supposed to hear. Those men came in yesterday, asking about a rancher's daughter traveling alone. Reyna's heart dropped. So word had spread faster than she thought. How many men? She asked. 3 at first, Colt said. But they spoke of more joining them along the trail. One of them said you had something no one else could find. Something your father died for. Reyna felt the world tilt for a moment. My father is not dead, she said quickly, as if speaking the words might make them true. Colt looked at her with sorry eyes. Miss, I do not know what you were told, but they said he did not make it out of the northern pass. His voice softened. Said they watched him fall? The words hit her like a blow. For a second, everything around her blurred. The letter, the empty house, the sudden silence in the barn. All the pieces she refused to put together now pressed against her heart. She caught herself on a nearby rock and drew a shaky breath. Keown's gaze settled on her, steady and grounded. He did not tell her to be strong. He let her feel the weight of what she had heard. We will not take their word as truth, Keown said firmly. Men who hunt in the shadows twist stories to their use. Colt nodded quickly. I only know what I heard, he said. But I know something else. He lowered his voice. They said they needed you alive, at least for a while. Said only you could read something your father left behind. Reyna's mind raced. I cannot read any special map. I do not even have one. Keown knelt so he was level with Colt. Where did you leave these men? By the creek beyond the south ridge, Colt replied. They were arguing about which path to take. When they started talking about cutting her off before the canyon narrows, I slipped away. I thought they would not miss a stable boy. He tugged at his sleeve. But one of them saw me run. I have been dodging them since sunset. Keown studied the boy's face, searching for lies. He must have decided the fear in Colt's eyes was real because he gave a slow nod. You did well to come this way, he said. You are safe for now. Colt glanced at Reyna again, curiosity mixing with worry. Are you really the rancher's daughter? Reyna swallowed and straightened, wiping dust from her hands. Yes, she said. I am, Colt frowned. Then I reckon you are in more trouble than you think. The main conflict now pressed on them from all sides. Men riding for gain. A young woman holding a truth she did not understand. An Apache warrior caught between his people's ways and the chaos brought by outsiders. And now a boy who had overheard too much, drawn into their path by chance or fate. Keown motioned Colt closer to the shelter. Sit, rest, he said. But you must tell us everything you heard at that saloon. Colt sank to the ground, relief and exhaustion showing plainly. He took a breath and began to speak. The leader, the one with the scar on his jaw. They called him Wade. He said your father promised to show him a hidden route through the cliffs. A way to move freight where no law could watch? Said your father backed out at the last moment. Sighed, he ran instead of keeping his word. Reyna shook her head. My father could be reckless, but he was not a coward. Colt nodded. I believe that. Wade did not sound angry because of broken trust. He sounded angry because your father knew something he could not force from him. The boy's eyes flicked to Keown. Wade said the trail ran through old Apache land. Said that made it risky. He did not care. Keown's jaw tightened. My people were driven from many paths, he said. The land still remembers their steps, even when men pretend to forget. Reyna looked at him. Do you know this trail they are talking about? He held her gaze for a long moment. I know of many paths that were not meant for wagons and greed, he answered. Paths that were used for ceremony, not for profit. If these men force their way through, they will stir more trouble than they understand. The conflict deepened in that simple truth. It was no longer just about her survival. It was about the land, the old ways, and what happened when desperate men tried to bend both to their will. Keown stood and finally struck flint to stone, lighting a small shielded fire. He kept it low, hidden between the rocks so its glow did not reach the open ridge. Reyna sat near the warmth, her thoughts racing. She thought of her father bending over old maps, tracing lines with calloused fingers, talking softly about lost routes and the cost of greed. She remembered him saying more than once that some doors should stay closed. Some trails should stay buried. Now men were breaking those doors wide open. And somehow they believed she held the key. Did you ever see him draw anything special? Keown asked quietly. A mark that did not look like a usual road or river? Reyna closed her eyes, searching her memory. At first, all she saw were broken flashes, ink stains on his hands, the smell of coffee late at night, a candle guttering while he muttered to himself. Then, slowly, a clearer picture came. A folded scrap he once tucked into the inside cover of a worn ledger. A small drawing, no bigger than her palm, with a jagged line and 3 small circles along one side, like stepping stones. He had pulled it away when he noticed her watching. "I saw something once," she said, opening her eyes. "I only saw it for a second, but it did not look like the usual ranch map." Keowan's attention sharpened. "Can you remember it?" "Not all of it," Reyna admitted. "Just the 3 circles, and a mark like a broken arrow near the edge." Keowan went still. Colt looked between them, not understanding. Keowan reached for a flat stone, dipped a finger in a bit of blackened soot, and drew a rough shape on the ground. A jagged line, 3 circles, a broken arrow near the side. "Like this?" he asked. Reyna's breath hitched. "Yes, exactly like that." She stared at him. "How do you know it?" Keowan wiped the drawing with his hand, erasing it. "It is an old sign. My grandfather spoke of it before he died. A path that cuts through a narrow pass where the cliffs lean close together. It is dangerous, easy to trap, easy to control. Men who hold that trail can move things unseen, or stop others from crossing." Reyna felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "Then my father was chasing something he should have left alone." "Maybe," Keowan said. "Or maybe he was trying to keep it from the wrong hands." Colt shifted near the fire. "If Wade finds that trail, he will use it," the boy warned. He bragged about how no lawman could touch him if he had his own hidden road. The subplots tangled tighter. Reyna wrestled with grief and doubt over her father. Keowan carried the memory of old stories and the responsibility of protecting land his people once walked freely. Colt was a street-smart boy who wanted no part of outlaw plans, yet now knew too much to stay safe. And somewhere, beyond the ridge, Wade and his men rode with their own anger, convinced they were owed something they had not earned. Keowan rose again and walked to the edge of the slope. "They will not stop looking," he said. "They believe you can lead them to this sign." Reyna shook her head. "But I cannot. I only saw it once." "That is enough for men like Wade," Keowan replied. "He will try to break your memories apart until something useful falls out." Colt rubbed his arms as if the night had turned colder. "What are you going to do?" he asked Keowan. Keowan did not answer right away. The fire popped softly between them, the only sound for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice held the weight of more than just his own fate. "We will move before dawn," he said. "We must reach a place where their horses cannot surround us easily." Reyna looked up. "Where is that?" Keowan turned toward the dark line of distant hills. "There is an old outpost, abandoned years ago. It sits near the start of the northern cliffs. If your father knew anything worth dying for, traces of it may still be there. There may also be answers to what really happened to him." Reyna's throat tightened. She was not ready to face the truth, but she could no longer run from it either. The main conflict now stretched farther than her own fear. It touched her father's choices, the future of the land, and the clash between men who respected unseen boundaries and those who trampled over them. Without a second thought, Keowan's gaze locked with hers. "But if we go there," he said, "we will be walking straight toward the very danger you are running from." Reyna held his stare. Behind her, Colt shifted uneasily. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote cried. The night seemed to lean in again. Waiting for her answer, she did not give one yet, because even as the fire warmed her hands, the cold truth settled deeper. There was no path forward that would not put them all in greater danger. Reyna didn't sleep that night. Even wrapped in her blanket near the low fire, the tension in her chest never loosened. Every rustle in the brush made her eyes snap open. Every shift of wind felt like footsteps approaching. She could hear Colt snoring lightly on the other side of the fire, exhaustion finally dragging him into rest. But Keowan never slept. He sat on a rock just beyond the fire's glow, silent as the desert stone, watching the shadows as if they whispered secrets only he could hear. before dawn stretched its first pale streak across the sky. Keowen rose. "It is time," he said softly. Reyna stood and folded her blanket, fingers trembling. The land around them felt heavier than the night itself, like it was holding its breath for what came next. They gathered their supplies quickly. Keowen made Colt drink water before they moved out, then tapped a small path leading north. Reyna glanced toward the canyon where her wagon waited. "What about the wagon?" "My things ... Wade will expect you to go back for them," Keowen said. "That is why we will not." Reyna nodded, though leaving behind the last pieces of her old life made her heart ache. She reminded herself that survival mattered more than possessions. She climbed the slope beside Keowen while Colt followed close behind, hurrying to keep up with their pace. The trail narrowed as they moved toward the northern cliffs. Massive spires of red stone rose on each side like ancient guards. The wind swept through the gaps with a faint whistle, carrying smells of dust and juniper. Reyna felt the weight of the land shift around them, as if they were walking into a place that didn't welcome intruders. Keowen moved confidently, but his shoulders were tense now. He paused at every bend, listening with the kind of focus Reyna envied. She caught up to him near a rock shelf where the path dropped sharply. "What are you hearing?" she whispered. He didn't look at her. "Hoofbeats, faint, far, but not far enough." Reyna felt cold settle in her stomach. "They're following us already?" "They likely found your wagon," Keowen replied. "Now they are tracking us instead." Colt stumbled a little, his eyes wide. "Wade doesn't give up," he said. "I told you he would follow until he had what he wanted." Keowen stopped and knelt, brushing dust over their footprints. "We will leave no clear trail," he said. "But if Wade has a scout, they may reach us before night?" Reyna forced a deep breath and steadied herself. She looked ahead at the towering cliffs and the narrow pass disappearing into shadow. "How far is this old outpost?" she asked. "It is hidden in the next valley," Keowen said. "If we reach it by midday, we may find what your father left behind. And we will have walls to defend if Wade arrives." Reyna didn't like the word defend. It felt too close to fight, and she didn't want conflict, only truth. But truth had a way of drawing danger with it. They pressed onward. The sun climbed, painting the cliffs in bright red and gold. Reyna wiped sweat from her brow as the trail steepened. Keowen helped Colt up a ledge when the boy's foot slipped. His calm strength gave Reyna enough courage to keep moving. Hours passed. The wind grew hotter. The cliffs pressed tighter. Reyna began to doubt the path existed when suddenly Keowen raised his hand. "There," he said. Reyna stepped to his side and saw it. A broken stone wall, half buried in sand, leaning into an angled rise. Behind it, the outline of a small structure weathered, ancient, forgotten by most who traveled this land. Ivy and rough brush had nearly swallowed the doorway, but its shape was still clear. "That is older than any ranch cabin I have seen," Reyna whispered. "It stood long before settlers came," Keowen said. "My grandfather said it was once used as a lookout. And later, men hid maps inside these walls when gold fever spread." Reyna felt her heart thump hard. "Then my father, he could have come here." "Maybe," Keowen said, stepping toward the entrance. "Or he came searching and left clues behind." Colt shaded his eyes and squinted at the landscape behind them. "Do you think Wade knows about this place?" Keowen shook his head. "If he did, he would already be here waiting." Reyna stepped into the old outpost, her boots crunching on dust that hadn't been disturbed in years. Inside, the air was cooler. Light filtered through cracks in the roof. She traced her fingers along the stone walls, and something tightened in her chest. The place felt familiar, though she had never seen it before. Keowen moved to a corner where flat stones had been stacked neatly. He touched them gently, studying their edges. "Someone moved these not long ago," he murmured. Reyna's heart jumped. "My father? Possibly. Or someone chasing him." They cleared the stones carefully. Beneath the last one, Reyna saw a piece of leather wrapping, edges worn from time. She reached for it, hands shaking. When she unrolled it, a sheet of rough paper fell out. A map. Her breath stopped. The same 3 circles. The same jagged path. and the broken arrow marking a turn. "This is it," she whispered. Keoan studied it beside her. "This shows the northern pass. But something is missing." He pointed to a faded corner. Part of the trail was torn away. Colt leaned closer. "Do you think Wade has the rest?" Reyna felt her heart hammer. "Or someone else does." Before Keoan could answer, the ground trembled faintly. A low vibration rolled through the stone beneath their feet. Reyna's eyes widened. What was that? Keoan moved to the doorway and peered down the slope. His face hardened. "Riders." Colt scrambled to the wall. "How many?" Keoan's voice was steady, but Reyna felt fear twist in her chest. 8, maybe 9. And Wade is with them. Reyna pressed a hand against the cool stone. "How did they find us so fast?" "Your wagon," Keoan said. "They saw the direction you turned. They are tracking by instinct now, not footprints." Reyna looked at the torn map corner again. Her father must have ripped it on purpose. He must have known someone dangerous was coming. Maybe he planned to hide part of it elsewhere. Maybe that was why he never returned home. Keoan stepped back from the entrance. "They will reach the valley in minutes. This place gives us cover, but not enough to hold them long." Reyna's pulse raced. "What do we do?" Keoan scanned the outpost with sharp eyes. He touched the back wall, pressing along the stone edges. "There should be another exit," he said. "Old shelters were never built with only one way out." Colt's voice shook. "And if we can't find it?" Keoan didn't answer. He searched faster now, his movements precise. Reyna helped push aside debris, her breath quickening. The vibration of hooves grew louder. Dust drifted from the rafters. Then Keoan paused, hand pressed against a narrow crack near the floor. "Here," he said. He dug his fingers into the seam and pulled. A slab shifted, revealing a crawlspace barely wide enough for one person at a time. Colt looked terrified. "That's too small?" "It leads to the back ledge," Keoan said. "If we reach it before Wade surrounds the outpost, we can cross to the higher ridge." Reyna swallowed. "And after the ridge?" "We trust the land to guide us," Keoan replied. The hoofbeats thundered closer. Reyna rolled the map and shoved it into her satchel. She helped Colt into the crawlspace first. The boy scrambled through with quick hands and knees, fear giving him speed. Then Reyna dropped to the ground, her skirts scraping stone. She glanced back at Keoan. "You go after me." "I will go last," he said firmly. Reyna crawled forward, the tight stone pressing on her shoulders. Behind her, she heard Keoan dragging the slab back into place. The darkness of the crawlspace wrapped around her, warm and stale. Her breath echoed between the stone walls. Halfway through, she heard hooves skid to a stop outside the outpost. Wade's voice cut through the stillness. "Spread out." "They're here." Reyna froze. Keoan's whisper reached her from behind, low and steady. "Do not stop. Keep moving." She forced her legs to push. The sound of boots hitting the ground came from the entrance. Harsh voices cursed. Someone kicked the old wall. Someone else shouted that they saw tracks. Reyna crawled faster, heart pounding so loud she feared they would hear it. She reached the end and spilled out onto a narrow ledge overlooking a drop that stole her breath. Colt clung to a rock, eyes wide with fear. "Ryna ... hurry." She turned back toward the crawlspace opening. "Keoan." But Keoan wasn't there yet. The slab trembled. Voices filled the outpost. Wade growled. "Find them, now." Reyna reached for the crawlspace with trembling hands. Keoan still hadn't emerged, and the danger closing around them was seconds away from breaking through. Reyna's breath hitched as the crawlspace slab shook again. She dropped to her knees, reaching into the shadowed opening with both hands. The outpost walls echoed with Wade barking orders, boots scraping, something heavy being shoved aside. Colt pressed himself against the narrow ledge behind her, trembling but silent. The world felt suspended, the entire ridge holding its breath, waiting for the next moment to break open. Then a hand grasped hers, warm, steady, strong. Keoan pulled himself through the final gap. his shoulder scraping the stone as he pushed free just before boots thudded against the crawlspace on the other side. Reyna grabbed his arm and helped him onto the ledge. The moment his boots touched solid ground, Kiowan reached back and pulled the stone slab firmly into place. It sealed with a muffled thud. They had escaped by seconds. Below them, voices shouted in frustration inside the outpost. Wade's growl rose above the noise. They were here. They can't be far. Spread out. Kiowan motioned for silence. He kept one hand gently hovering near Reyna's back as he led her along the thin ledge. The late afternoon light cast long shadows along the cliff, and each narrow step felt like walking the edge of a blade. Colt moved carefully ahead, gripping stone with every inch he climbed. Reyna stayed close behind Kiowan, trusting his careful movements, trusting the quiet confidence in his steps. By the time they reached the higher ridge, the sounds of Wade's men had faded into distant echoes. Kiowan led them toward a sheltered hollow between two boulders where the wind carried their scent away from the valley. There, finally, he let Reyna sit and breathe. Colt collapsed beside her, gasping. "I thought they had us," he whispered. Reyna managed a shaky smile. "So did I." Kiowan scanned the horizon for several long moments before sitting beside them. His expression softened only slightly, but Reyna saw relief flicker behind his steady gaze. "They will search until sundown," he said. "But they will not find the ledge unless they know where to look." Colt hugged his knees. "What do we do now?" "Wade won't stop." Reyna looked down at the satchel strapped across her chest. The map inside felt like it weighed more than stone. She drew a slow breath, feeling the warmth of Kiowan's presence beside her. "We go where my father went," she said quietly. "To finish what he started. And to end this." Kiowan turned toward her. "Are you ready?" Reyna nodded, even though part of her still felt raw. "If we keep running, they will chase us forever. If we go through the northern pass first, we can use what my father learned before Wade can twist it." Colt swallowed hard. "But what about your father?" The wind brushed Reyna's cheek as she stared toward the cliffs. Pain tugged at her chest, but something steadier rose beneath it. "I think he died trying to protect this land," she said softly. "And trying to protect people like us from men like Wade. If that is true, then I won't let his sacrifice be wasted." Kiowan gave a small nod, an unspoken agreement that carried strength. And we moved before nightfall. The journey toward the northern pass was long, slow, and uneven. They moved along high trails that gave them a wide view of the land. Reyna felt her fear slowly blend with determination. Kiowan stayed near her, guiding her steps over broken rock and loose gravel. Colt followed close, growing steadier with each mile. By the time they reached the mouth of the pass, the sun was sinking low. A wide, sweeping red glow lit the cliffs, making the stone look alive. Wind moved gently through the narrows, stirring dust in soft spirals. Reyna stood still, catching her breath. Something about the place felt familiar and foreign at once. Kiowan noticed her silence and stepped beside her. "You feel it," he said quietly. Reyna nodded. "This is where he came." Kiowan touched the cliff face, his voice soft. "My grandfather spoke of trails that chose their travelers. Maybe your father was chosen to guard this one." Reyna tightened her grip on the map. "Then we need to finish what he tried to do." They followed the pass deeper. Rays of the fading sun filtered through cracks above, casting warm, shifting patterns along the ground. Reyna's heart pounded with each step, the memory of her father's voice becoming clearer in her mind. He had always warned her that some roads demanded more courage than others. Halfway through the pass, they found it, a narrow opening in the cliff marked with the same broken arrow symbol she saw on the map, the exact mark her father once hid. Colt gasped softly. "This must be it." Kiowan crouched and studied the carvings. "Old," he murmured. "Very old, but left here to guide those who respect the land." Reyna unfolded the map. The torn edges lined perfectly with the entrance before them. Something inside her shifted, a mix of sadness, pride, and resolve. My father knew. He wanted this path to stay hidden from men like Wade. Kiowan touched her shoulder gently. Then we must do what he could not. They moved through the hidden opening. Inside, the trail widened into a shallow cavern that sloped downward. The air was cooler, and the walls glowed faintly with mineral lines. At the back of the cavern, Reyna spotted something half-buried under scattered stones. Her heart jumped. Colt helped her clear the rocks away. She lifted the satchel carefully, her hands trembling. The leather was worn but intact. She opened it and inside found another folded sheet, a journal, and a small wooden token carved with a symbol she recognized from childhood. Kioan watched quietly as Reyna opened the journal. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable. Pages filled with notes explaining what he discovered, warnings, diagrams, and at the very end, a message written in a shaky hand. If my daughter finds this, know that I tried to protect the land and you. Trust the Apache people. Trust the warrior who walks with honor. He will guide you where I could not. Reyna pressed the words to her chest, tears burning her eyes. Kioan lowered his head respectfully, honoring the man he never met. Colt wiped his face, pretending it was dust as Reyna read more pages. The truth became clear. Her father had uncovered Wade's plan long before Wade even realized the full value of the hidden trail. He had destroyed part of the map so no outlaw gang could use it. He had left the rest in hoping that someday the right hands would finish the work. Reyna looked at Kioan. My father trusted someone like you before he died. Kioan's eyes softened with a quiet gravity. Then I will honor that trust. They left the cavern with the journal, the map pieces, and her father's token. Kioan led them toward a high ridge overlooking the valley. The sun had fallen behind the cliffs, leaving behind a soft blue twilight. In the distance, Wade's men moved along the lower trails. Searching without direction, Reyna stood tall, the wind brushing her hair. They will never find the real trail, she said. Not now. Kioan nodded. Their path ends where your courage begins? Colt grinned weakly. Does this mean we can finally rest? Reyna laughed through her tears. Yes, Colt, it does. They traveled east toward Pine Cliff the next morning, carrying her father's truth and leaving behind the danger they had endured. Wade's gang scattered over the next week, failing to find the past they believed existed. Rumors spread that the land itself rejected their kind. Soon the riders drifted away. Defeated. Colt found work with a kind blacksmith in town who took him under his wing. Reyna made sure he had food, a bed, and a fresh start. The boy finally slept without fear. Reyna rebuilt her life slowly. But she did not do it alone. Kioan became an unexpected anchor, visiting often, guiding her through the land her father once loved. With him, she discovered a quiet strength she didn't know she had. In return, she brought warmth into a life shaped by solitude and shadows. Together, they walked old trails. Together, they honored what her father protected. And together, they built something gentle in the hard world of the frontier. Reyna often returned to the ridge above the hidden cavern, carrying her father's token in her pocket. She would look out at the sweeping land and feel peace settle over her like a warm blanket. The truth no longer frightened her. It strengthened her. Kioan stood beside her one warm evening, watching the sky change colors. The land chose you, he said quietly. Reyna smiled at him. I think it chose you from me too. He reached for her hand, steady and patient, and for the first time in a long while, Reyna felt her heart rest.